Hey, Charles Hoffman here from Plugin Alliance. Today we're covering the 5 worst mixing tips you've been told. There's probably more than 5, but I can almost guarantee you've heard these ones before. Not only that, but I'll be explaining why these tips are misinformed and how doing the opposite can be extremely beneficial to you. You can demo all the plugins in this video for 30 days by starting a free Mega Plan trial using the link below. How many times have you heard this? Don't clip your tracks. So, what is clipping? Well, it's a type of waveform distortion that occurs when audio exceeds 0 decibels. Now, the specifics of where that clipping occurs greatly impact your mixes. Many people think that if individual tracks are peaking into the red, they're clipping. Most DAWs process audio in a 32-bit floating point work environment, meaning program material that peaks above 0 decibels isn't lost. First, let me prove this, and then we'll take a look at why it matters. Clipping doesn't occur when it peaks at a track level. If you turn up the track, it looks like it's clipping and sounds like it's clipping. However, if you turn down the signal at a master bus level, it no longer sounds like it's clipping. This means that clipping isn't taking place at a track level.
Yeah.
While it's a little more work to prove this, clipping doesn't occur at a master bus level either. If you turn up your master bus, it looks like it's clipping, and again, it sounds like it's clipping. Additionally, if you render out a 32-bit file, it will also sound like it's clipping when you play it back. The thing is, when you import this file into a DAW and reduce its level, you can reclaim the information that sounds like it's lost. On the other hand, when you render a 24-bit file, information above 0 decibels is lost and you're unable to reclaim it. So in that case, clipping occurs when the track is rendered. Knowing all this, where does clipping occur when you play back audio in your DAW without rendering anything? The answer is when the audio runs through the digital to analog converter in your audio interface, it clips. You can't play back waveform data above 0 decibels. It can be saved to the file, but you can't play it back without distortion. Your audio interface applies digital clipping, which often sounds harsh and undesirable. This is why you hear some people say, don't clip your tracks. Analog clipping is completely different. It can sound gritty, warm, and fat. Analog clipping can also increase the loudness of your music while avoiding squashed pumping effects. Clipping your music with the right technique has some very tangible benefits. You can achieve analog clipping by overdriving preamps and other analog hardware. If you mostly work in the box, you can use a clipper plugin like BX Clipper to apply analog style clipping to your music. Sounds great on drums and aggressive metal and EDM masters. Always cut, never boost with an EQ. Why would someone say that? Well, there are some benefits we'll explore using the Nautilus DSC EQ. Boosting frequencies increases the overall level of a track, which can lead to unwanted distortion and a reduction in headroom. By focusing on cutting unwanted frequencies instead, you can maintain a cleaner signal and avoid pushing levels too high. Cutting frequencies also avoids amplifying any existing noise or unwanted artifacts in your track. Boosting can make these issues more prominent, whereas cutting lets you clean up the sound more transparently. This approach also tends to produce a more natural and balanced sound, since boosting can sometimes create an unnatural or overly hyped tone. Cutting frequencies can also prevent phase issues arising from boosting, especially with analog or analog modeled EQs. Boosting can sometimes introduce phase shifts that negatively impact the mix. By cutting, you can achieve a more phase-coherent and clean result. On the flip side, boosting frequencies can be beneficial when certain elements need to stand out or have more presence in the mix. For instance, if a vocal track lacks brightness, a slight boost in the high frequencies can make it more intelligible and engaging. This can be particularly useful in genres where certain instruments or vocal parts need to cut through a dense mix. Boosting can also add character and warmth to a sound, especially when using analog or analog modeled EQs that introduce pleasing harmonic distortion. This type of enhancement can add desirable coloration to the sound that cutting won't achieve. By carefully boosting specific frequencies, you can enrich the tonal quality of your music. Finally, boosting can sometimes be more efficient than cutting. For example, boosting your top end can instantly add brightness and clarity if a mix sounds dull. It's more work to cut the lows and mids and then turn up the track level. If you produce music professionally, speed matters, and boosting with an EQ can get you to the finish line faster than always cutting. When I first started producing music over a decade ago, I had this fear of applying too much compression to my sounds. Everybody online was saying don't overcompress your music, you'll suck the life out of it. And while that's true and it can happen, there are many situations where tracks need anywhere from 6 to over 12 decibels of compression to sound right. This is especially true for tightly mixed genres like pop, hip-hop, rock, and electronic music. Gain reduction meters are a helpful visual cue, but they can often lead people astray. Relying solely on the visual feedback of these meters can result in over-cautious compression, where the fear of going too far prevents you from getting the results you want. Instead, it's important to train your ears to recognize the sonic qualities of effective compression. Listen to how the dynamics and texture of the track change, and use a gain reduction meter as a secondary reference. This approach helps ensure that your compression decisions serve the music. Let's use BX Glue as an example. One effective technique is to start with aggressive settings and then dial them back. By pushing a compressor to its extremes, you can clearly hear its impact on the audio. This can reveal how the compressor shapes the sound, making it easier to find the sweet spot where the track breathes naturally but remains controlled. Remember, compression is not just about taming peaks, but also about enhancing the presence and punch of a track. When dialed in properly, heavy-handed compression settings can help you avoid relying on serial compression, where you apply compression in stages. This is another great time saver. Don't forget that context is everything. The amount of compression required can vary greatly depending on the individual track and the overall mix. A vocal might need heavy compression to sit well in a dense mix, while a solo acoustic guitar might only need subtle leveling. Always consider the role of each element in your mix and apply compression accordingly. Trust your ears, experiment with different settings, and don't be afraid to apply what seems like a lot of compression if it leads to a better sound. High pass all your tracks. The thought process behind this is that it makes more room for your bass, but this tip did me dirty for a long time. When I first started out, I took this advice to heart and began high passing almost everything. I thought I was creating a cleaner mix by cutting out the low frequencies that weren't immediately necessary. However, what I didn't realize was that I was stripping my tracks of their warmth and body, making them sound thin and lifeless. It took me a while to understand that not all tracks need to be high-passed, and that sometimes these low frequencies contribute significantly to the richness and fullness of a mix. One key lesson I learned was to use high-pass filters selectively. Instead of applying them universally, I started listening to each track in isolation and within the context of the full mix. This approach helped me identify which elements truly needed high passing and those that didn't. While it often makes sense to high-pass guitars, synths, and background vocals to avoid muddiness, you may not need to cut them that high. Guitars often have essential frequency content around 60 to 80 Hz, and you might be better off applying a low shelf filter if a high-pass filter is too extreme. Another important aspect to consider is the slope of the high-pass filter. A gentle slope can subtly reduce unwanted low frequencies without completely cutting them off, preserving some of the instrument's natural warmth. On the other hand, a steep slope can be useful for removing rumble and noise, but it can also make the track sound too sterile if overused. By being more discerning with your use of high-pass filters, your mixes will start to sound more balanced and cohesive. Don't mix using headphones. So, where does this one come from? Ideally, you're mixing and mastering your music in a perfectly soundproof and sound-treated environment with a near flat frequency response at your listening position. The number of people actually working in a space like this is very small. You can rent a space like this from a commercial recording studio or custom build a studio in your home for thousands of dollars, but again, this is uncommon, especially if you produce music as a hobby. If you're mixing with laptop speakers or studio monitors in an untreated room, you're probably better off mixing primarily with headphones. This will eliminate acoustic problems like comb filtering, flutter echo, standing waves, and excessive decay times. Even if you have acoustic treatment, it might not be comprehensive enough or effective enough to outweigh the benefits of using headphones. Headphones provide an isolated listening environment, taking your room out of the equation. Some mastering engineers like Glenn Schick work primarily with headphones and can produce great results. We actually have a video on that we'll link to below. Headphones aren't without their drawbacks though. When you put on a pair of headphones, your left ear hears the left channel and your right ear hears the right channel. With studio monitors, your left ear hears both channels and so does your right ear. This is called acoustic crosstalk, and the time delay between a sound wave hitting one ear and then the other helps with sound source localization. You're able to clearly pinpoint where the sound is positioned within the stereo field, assuming you're in a sound-treated space. With headphones, you lose that precision and stereo placement becomes more difficult. Headphones can also result in excessive bass buildup, especially when using closed-back headphones. You can usually accommodate for that using a headphone EQ software, so there are ways to manage this. Each playback device has its own set of challenges and benefits. Generally speaking, most people are better off mixing with headphones and putting up with headphone-related problems. In comparison, poor room acoustics can lead to very uninformed mixing decisions, especially regarding the overall frequency balance of your mixes. Again, you can demo all the plugins in this video for 30 days by starting a free Mega Plan trial using the link below. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe to the Plugin Alliance YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.